All right, at this time, I'd like to invite our panelists who are part of the second panel up onto the stage. Grab a seat here. We're at 1:37, so I'm going to try to keep us to about a 20 minute panel, hopefully. But just to set the stage as our panelists are joining us, I think as you look at this panel, the connection you should make is, this morning we heard about the data, and then we had a panel of just extraordinary community leaders and advocates help to give a little story and a little light to that data, and also what it means for us in our communities as we're working on the everyday issues that we need to continue to thrive, be healthy, and try to undo some of the things that are holding us back as a community. And with Senator Vara's comments, I think we really begin to now pivot around this idea of responsiveness. And we've heard this come up a couple of times, and that is that any substantive and real response is going to have to come from a working together of multiple sectors, right? The nonprofit sector is in no position to actually solve any of these major issues by itself. Simply first because of the fact that nonprofits can't make policy. They can advocate and compel policy, but they actually don't have the executive power to make policy, right? So you need governments to work with you. Secondly, that there are sectors around the economy and how we drive economic development that require the corporate sector to be at the table and work with us and listen and figure out and come up with creative solutions. So our panel, our second panel here today, is in having an opportunity as we begin to think about how these conversations will look, where there's, again, opportunities to respond. Now we'll start to connect. We're going to make a sentence at the end of the day, right? So we have opportunity and response. We'll do an ad-lib at the end. So we're adding action. That's what your panel will help. So as we bring those together, I think what we're going to explore now is hear from some of the other sectors. So what does this data mean to you? You know, what opportunities do you see? What are you already doing? And what are things you might want to do in this area? So with that, I'm going to jump right into our panel. All right, so first, I'm very happy that she was able to join us. We have Margarita Ramirez with Liberty Hill Foundation. Margarita is a deputy director for grant making at the foundation, and after graduating high school in 1970, she started to work for Catholic Charities. I'm sure an organization we're all familiar with, especially if we do any work in the immigration space, which drew her to an interest to social service work. That summer, she attended the National Chicano Moratorium against the Vietnam War, and this shifted her attention to social change work. Margarita's subsequent years of college activism at St. Mary's College and political activism brought her to Liberty Hill in 1981. So certainly an institution within the institution that is Liberty Hill. And I don't say that facetiously. I think you see that every day in her voice and the way it has helped to shape that foundation and a lot of our work in the nonprofit sector. So she's been central to that organization and has been key to bringing up and starting investments in communities like this, in showing the foundation where the pockets of need and how to engage with the community there. So Margarita, welcome to the panel. Thank you for joining us. Next, we're also very excited to have Teresa Villegas with the Office of Los Angeles County Supervisor Hilda Solis, District 1, which is our district here in the Southeast, and also a very active and influential member of the working group that really helped to shape this and invest in thinking through and helping to make this summit happen today. So thank you for that. Teresa Villegas is the Senior Deputy for Environmental Issues, Public Works, Parks, and Legislative Affairs for County Supervisor Hilda Solis. She has owned her own business. And I take it this is a typo. MTV, that's not Music Television Network, right?
Martha Teresa Villegas.
Because if not, you'd be here as a philanthropist. You would not let you get away with coming and talking about policy. So MTV Environmental Consulting. served as Executive Fellow to the California Air Resources Control Board and Legislative Director for the Trust for Public Lands. Teresa, thank you for joining us. Next, I want to introduce my good friend, Raul Alvarez, who is with Office of California Assembly Member and Speaker Anthony Rendon. Raul is the Senior Advisor to the Speaker of the California Assembly, Anthony Rendon, and because he is tech savvy, he texts me the points that I'm going to share with you today. Previously, he was also District Director for the Speaker, worked 5 years for LA County Supervisor Gloria Molina, also District 1, prior to Supervisor Hilda Solis, and holds a master's from Cal State Long Beach in Public Administration. Raul, welcome. And then next, I'd like to introduce our new and soon-to-be good friend, Gene Statler with MasterCard. And we're very happy that Gene is joining us today because we think it's a very important voice and also always good to continue to add to the people that we count as friends in the Southeast. So Gene Statler is creator and director of Master Your Card, a community empowerment program sponsored by MasterCard. Through Gene's leadership, Master Your Card has partnered with organizations and individuals across the country to drive financial inclusion and inclusive growth from the ground up in underserved communities. Master Your Card also works with small businesses to maximize the value and limit the cost of electronic payment acceptance. Gene's distinguished career in Washington, D.C. includes working in the U.S. Senate and creating some of the most highly visible and successful programs, primarily through her market research expertise to rebrand and revitalize leisure industries. So that is not to say that she's here because these are not the leader vibrant community, but you definitely have skills to really help us out. So we're glad you're able to join the conversation today. And then last but certainly not least, someone who in my short stint in philanthropy has been a great mentor and certainly a change maker. That word gets thrown around a lot, but literally a change maker in the sector of philanthropy. We have Belen Vargas, who's Vice President of Programs for the Weingart Foundation. Belen was actually born and raised in East LA and still lives on the East Side. But like the Latinos that grow up in like Flower Gardens and Pico, Whittier is like your step up. And in East LA, Montebello is like your step up. She lives in Montebello, I live in Whittier. She's also a graduate of Cal State LA, so it's great to have so much of Cal State LA's talent contributing today. And Belen has an over 16-year tenure at the Weingart Foundation. And for those of you who don't know, the Weingart Foundation is a tremendous asset and change maker in the Southern California region for several reasons. One is it's one of the few foundations that truly invests and makes sure that their grant making strengthens nonprofit organizations rather than just makes them deliver work. And second is a foundation that's very driven. Its work is very driven by community input, what the needs are in the community. So it does a lot of listening. You tell us what we should be investing in. So for that, I think Belen should take a lot of credit. She's been instrumental for guiding that perspective at the foundation and currently helps to lead a lot of the way that they evaluate and think about their work. So we're very fortunate to have one of Weingart's Foundation's top executives join us today for this, to be here in the Southeast, but also to be part of the conversation. So with that, what I'm going to do to put Belen on the spot is I'm going to actually have her go first. And I'll allow each of the panelists to briefly, we're pressed for time. You guys are all professionals at this, so you'll be very good, and you're not elected officials, so you'll be very good at really quick comments.
Getting to the point.
So the first question, Belen, if you could kick the panel off, is just thinking about this as a foundation. What are your immediate reactions to the data, but then also the panel conversation that we heard, if you're trying to connect the two? And specifically, I mean, does what you see motivate you to do more work, or does it sort of scare you in terms of how it is that you get engaged?
Sure. Thank you, Efrain. And I know we're short on time, but I really want to thank CCF I was trying to. It won't pull anymore. I'll move forward. I want to thank the California Community Foundation, Pat Brown Institute, but really, this is a really inspiring day because every single person in this room, you're all leaders. You're all leaders, and you are all very much committed and connected. So this is inspiring, and so that's how I will begin to answer your question, Efrain, is that this motivates you know, me and my role in philanthropy. Obviously, I have a real personal, you know, connection. As Efrain shared, I'm not technically Southeast. Olympic and 710 is still where my parents live, but all my tios and tias lived in the and still live in the Southeast. But
it could have been Southeast if the 710 wasn't right there.
Right, you're right. The 5 and the 710, yes. This is really motivating, and really one of the main reasons why the Weingart Foundation has made a really big decision. We have identified the Southeast region, and we are looking at this on a regional basis, and I think that's a really important point that you've heard today, because again, it builds upon the assets of all the different communities. But we have identified the region as an area that we really want to come in and focus. And we want to be able to provide whatever resources we can to support the nonprofit infrastructure, you know, in these communities. So it's not a surprise. It kind of echoes what we heard in the community panel. Is what was clear to me in terms of what was missing was the role of the nonprofit sector and identifying it as an asset to the community, because you are all the folks on the ground every day doing this work. I come from the nonprofit sector. Prior to philanthropy, I spent 8 years in the nonprofit sector. Everyone at Weingart, it's a requirement. So we understand what the value is and the work that you do every day to really support the community and the issues that you're most interested in and passionate about. So this is very motivating to me, and I'll stop there. And
great. No, I think that's a great way to kick us off, and maybe to not clump, but allow you an opportunity to synergize off each other. Maybe Margarita, if you wanted to go next, and just from Liberty Hill's perspective, share a little bit about your reactions, what this means to you.
Well, I think I share a lot of the same sentiments. What I hear a lot, because Liberty Hill is a public charity. We also are a nonprofit like you all. We raise money and give it away to grassroots organizing in Los Angeles County. And because we fund the county, we look at regional areas. We focus specifically on grassroots organizing because we still believe it's the one fundamental criteria for bringing about social change. People getting together and raising their voices in communities have to be part of the equation, have to be part, and I heard a lot about that today. I heard a lot about people being represented, people being engaged, and not just, you know, providing input, which I thought was really great. And it was great to hear from Mark. Mark Lopez comes from, I mean, I knew his mom, you know, Juana Gutierrez, you know, and they've been involved in environmental justice movements for a very, very long time. Liberty Hill started supporting it, the environmental justice work, when it wasn't even a coined term. It was just developing. There were all these Aaron Brockoviches in the world, you know, that had a hunch because they lived it, but then had to be informed. They had to study the issue. They had to find a way to know what was upon them, and they did that and won. And the environmental justice movement very much resonates with me as a part of what happens here in Southeast Los Angeles. There's been an incredible array of organizations pulling together as a very strong coalition effort to deal with cumulative impact here in the Southeast region. And I hear things about, you know, the sort of the exciting movements that are going around the ports of Los Angeles and the goods movement. Well, the goods movement is all these warehouses that are housing and employing temporary workers, people with contingent labor forces that don't have, minimum wages, that are very, very, very much exploited. These are parts of the things that come in with that. And so I would say with community benefits agreements that they would, when whatever, comes out of sort of regional, there are examples and models of regional coalitions and regional efforts that have really brought together impact for the long haul. In 2003, California basically adopted environmental justice, policies that were created because of community input and because of community sort of mobilizing around it. And the work that East Yard does is a culmination of that. That was over 20 years ago, and now they're not only supporting each other as a region, but those then have benefits for the individual cities that are sparked by the movement itself. So it's very exciting to me, and I think it's a great effort.
Great, great. Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for making those connections of its ongoing work. I mean, things build and sustain over time, and they change, and now we're seeing great opportunities. So, Jean, so you're the new kid on the block, so I'd be curious to hear from you. You've had an opportunity to work in a number, from DC to a number of different areas. You work for a multinational organization. Just curious, from the report you saw today, some of it covered transactions and sales, purchasing power. Just what struck you the most, and what would you say is probably for you a takeaway? What's the biggest opportunity here, or the bigger question you maybe take away that you'd want to hear more about or explore more?
Sure. I first would, the disclaimer is that even though I'm from DC, I do know that most good ideas and actions take place out here. And so that's why I'm here. And certainly from Master Your Card's point of view, what you're doing here and all these people in the room and the energy in this room are all directed at solutions. It's really how can we each make a difference in the community, in this region? And that to me is what's so impressive, in that follows the model that we've set up with Master Your Card, which is input, educate, innovate. And that is, the input is listening. I think I've heard this time and time again. Why don't you ask the people who live on the, next to the LA River? So that's what we do. We go in really as the eyes and ears for kind of the innovation end of it, which is really MasterCard, which is really a technology company that allows these transactions to take place in a safe, simple, and secure way. But it's really, it's through that input. What is it that the community needs? How can we fit? And then how can we help educate them about, and the people here about it? And try to innovate some solutions. If there's something that we don't have at our fingertips, what is it that we could do to help innovate, and lead some of those to those solutions? Part of the other thing that would be remiss if I didn't point out, that we also have on the ground the best eyes and ears here in Southeast LA and in California, with who we work with most closely at Master Your Card, who is Master Your Card out here, Jorge Garado, who grew up in Southeast LA, and Fabian Nunes is the other partner with us to guide us in terms of really what we should be doing here. So I think the opportunity for us is to really help you make a difference, figure out where we can plug in to it. And this is not just a in and out one-year thing that after my conversation with you last month, it's something you're committed to for years, and it's something that we'd like to be committed to for years to help you. And I think it could be really a model for the nation, which is ultimately what we're interested in.
Great, thanks for sharing that. So now, Teresa, Raul, I mean, we've heard a lot of different voices and a lot of different perspectives, and what I'd like for you all to touch on, be maybe you first, Teresa, is just, when you hear a lot of these ideas and you think about your work in the Southeast, what are you seeing as sort of the opportunities, and how is it that, as Juan continued to repeat in the panel, you gotta take it to policy, we gotta see policy. Can you share a little bit about your perspective of are there new opportunities you see, or sort of what for you would be a next step as you think about where the county is and where it's at right now in relation to these communities?
Sure. I think we talked about a lot of different issues this morning. I don't have the wherewithal for all of them, but I can certainly create strategies for for housing issues, for environmental issues, and certainly for LA River, since that's my expertise, and conservation finance is my expertise. But when we talk about issues in the Southeast, I know that going into this, we didn't necessarily need for the Beacon folks to confirm everything that we already knew. We went through something similar just on parks with the LA County Needs Assessment. And we knew going into that 18-month exercise that we didn't necessarily need that information to tell us what we already know. However, I think another panelist may have mentioned this as well. We certainly need benchmarks in order to be able to get to the next step. And that information validates how we're going to progress and how we're going to strategize to get to that point. We want to get to an area where our rate for open space is a lot greater for all the residents and children that live, that should be living within a quarter of a mile walking distance, of a park or a 5-minute walk, and we know that that is very small. So if I have the research to at least back me up, I can certainly go after money, and not a divide by 5, but go after money where it's going to be the greatest need and going to have a perpetual increase or impact to that community. And I say a divide by 5 because I come from local government, which we have 5 boards of supervisors, and everything had been done traditionally on a divide by 5 for parks. We saw it with the last park measure, Prop A, where money was split up by a divide by 5. SD1, received 3 times less than other districts. That has been a big, big impact to overcome. So when we see a park needs assessment and we all roll our eyes, it's still information that's going to be valuable, and I still got to stay with it and stay positive, because that's still going to be information that's going to be able to help us. Follow the money has also been said earlier today, and that's certainly an impact that we need to be able to find. If money is not your thing, find somebody who is, because that's certainly going to be the value that's going to bring you the resources. The other thing is that when we hear about just the different sections of the information from the Beacon report, the county is a resource, and I say this because now being with the county off and on for the last 20 years, I know that the county has certainly a lot of services that we're going to be able to provide. City of Cudahy, I know, is a city that can certainly use a lot more services from the county. We can be able to provide engineering services, things that we may not think about, architectural services, landscaping districts, information that is vital to improve the services that the cities can provide to their constituents. Also, what I've learned just from today's panel is that we're not in it alone. We have such good leadership with the speaker and with, Senator Lada, and, just a lot of other, folks that are here. It's just that if we're able to collaborate more and just pick up the phone or text or whatever, we can do a lot more, and keep at it. I don't have gray hair for nothing.
Let's make it count.
Yeah.
Not count it, but let's make it count. So Raul, I think it was Ricardo who mentioned that, Senator Lara who mentioned, AB 530, and I know you've been integral to moving that work within your office. I was just wondering if, based on what we're doing here today, if you can talk a little bit about, from the perspective of the speaker, yourself, and that particular project, what are the advantages? Why is it key to have community at the table and to get people to want to come out and be engaged? And what do you need more of from them as you continue to build this work? Because as Teresa said, you can't do it alone, but I've heard from a lot of folks, friends, whether they were in county government or other governments, like, you hold these things and then nobody comes. You know, you're trying to say, okay, let's have community voice, and then nobody shows up, and you get 5 people, the same 5 people that show up to everything. So I'm wondering, just share a little bit about where you guys are at, how you're working that, and how important that is as we start to think about how we can collaborate.
Well, the LA River, well, 8530 in terms of it being a master plan for the lower portion of the river, it's pretty integral in terms of all that we're doing here in Southeast LA County, for a couple of reasons. You know, what this event is really about the opportunities that we can create together as a Southeast community. The LA River, the Southeast portion, really represents the opportunity to create a collective voice. One of the things that I heard early on was about Southeast identity, having a collective voice, being able to advocate for one another. What we found was that the city of LA was doing great things in the upper portion of the river. We're very supportive. Great for them. They have great resources, a great lobbying arm. They're very unified. What we realized is in the Southeast portion, there was a lot of cities working independent of one another to do something on the river. And what happened is that they would be left out in terms of applying for grant funding for transportation or bike paths, whatever. And the speaker realized that there was a need to unify the Southeast community so that we would have a comprehensive 51-mile plan for the river. He created this legislation, which creates a working group of 39 members and includes cities, nonprofits, stakeholders, Mark from East Yard, and you know, these people that are the advocates for the Southeast community. And I think it really parallels and mirrors what we're trying to do here through this work with CCF. It's really creating a unique voice in terms of being advocate for the Southeast as a whole. We went to Washington, D.C., we spoke to the Army Corps, and we spoke about the Southeast community as a whole. We're meeting with the city of LA, we're talking about the Southeast as a whole. It's really the opportunity, and it's kind of the example of what we can do moving forward. But it's not just that. We've seen within our local cities, or small cities in particular, Cudahy, Bell, Maywood, unfortunately, sometimes they can't even, they have to combine resources to apply for transportation funding. The need is there, the want is there, right? And that's where we come into place, right? And government, you have the opportunity right now with Supervisor Solis, you have the opportunity with Senator Lara, with the speaker, the energy's there, the will is there, we want to be here for you. So you need to tell us what you want, and know that we're listening. And I also say this, and this is more me channeling my boss in terms of him being the artist. Dream big, really, truly dream big in terms of what you're asking. In the Southeast, sometimes we get caught in the dogma of what the Southeast was and some of the issues that we've had. We should have everything that we want, and we should ask for that. I can't promise you that we're going to get everything. The same thing when we meet on the river. You know, we all want great things. I can't promise you we're going to get everything, but I can tell you that we're going to try very, very hard. You asked about next steps earlier. This is the next step for us is really to continue working in this dialogue, working with CCF, working with Pat Brown Institute, and working with us, telling us what you want. We're here to listen, and hopefully we're able to deliver long term.
Great, thanks for that. So I know we're not pressed for time, we're over time. So what I want to do though, because I think we don't want to miss this opportunity, and I think Raul, you transitioned us into this, is wanted to ask the rest of the panelists if you could just quickly share a little bit about, you know, as we leave here today, we started off by saying, hey, everyone does the presentations. We're hoping to have the presentation with a discussion. And I think it was Teresa who said, and then hopefully end around action, right? So I'd like to ask each of the panelists if in 1 minute you can share a little bit about, you know, what is work you've already started doing here, investing in here, or from today, what is work that you're hoping to, walking out from today, be able to ramp up and contribute as we start to sort of capitalize on some of these opportunities. So, Jean, maybe we could start with you and go down the panel.
Sure. The clock's going. I'd say probably one of the things that we have that we'd like to plug in to this area is a look at through the specific census tracts, this data that MasterCard collects. Not your names and telephone numbers, but certainly the sales and transactions that take place in the 9 cities in this region. And you know, and I think one of your questions was going to be, what do you know about these places? And I would say, based on, and so what we want to do, and I've talked to Ephraim and the Pat Brown Institute, is giving you more, really doing a deep dive into this information that they have, because it's real time. But for example, there are only 16 places in Bell where you can make a payment or purchase with a prepaid debit or credit card, but the transactions are large because most of the businesses have a healthcare connection. It's that kind of intelligence that we have that we can actually do a deep dive into and share with all of you. And I know you talked about not to get rid of the mom and pop businesses. This would really help in securing that and also bolstering that. So that's our action item going forward, is to figure out how we can plug that in specifically.
Great. That sounds like a good resource. Dana?
So the mission of the Weingart Foundation is to advance social and economic equity. And what that means is that we want to and will allocate all of our resources. And for those that don't know us, 70% of our resources go out in truly unrestricted multi-year funding. But we want to allocate all of our resources to communities that really need those resources. In other words, those facing the greatest obstacles. So as Efrain mentioned in talking a little bit about our foundation, we are actually we like to say very proudly, we're a responsive grant maker. And we use that word very proudly because we don't, because we all have come from the nonprofit sector, we don't sit in our offices and then create a strategy and then come to a community and tell them, this is what we want you to do. We do spend a lot of time in community trying to listen and understand, you know, what are their needs, but really where are their opportunities and where can our dollars, our unrestricted dollars, really help those organizations achieve their mission and their outcome and their larger visions. So we organized a bus tour because we needed to better understand this region, because frankly, when we looked at the data, the socioeconomic data on the region, and we looked at our grant making, we were not investing the way we knew we should. So we organized a great, what we call our listening tours. Our president and I have been doing these for like 9 years. Through a conversation with Supervisor Solis, when she learned that we do these learning moments for ourselves, said, can we be part of that? So it was a day that we spent here in the region. And I was a very proud day because the bus was a third government, a third community leaders, and a third philanthropy. There were 11 different foundations who said, I'm interested also in learning more of this about this region. And it was really led by our amazing community leaders, many of whom you've already heard today. And that from that day, we realized, again, what you all know here, which is there is amazing assets and leadership and work that's already happening. So what we're currently doing, and Victor Dominguez alluded to this, is we are providing critical planning dollars to the Southeast Collaborative, which currently I believe has 12 nonprofit leaders. And this is a group that has been coming together for years. So it's not like they created just for us, and we realized what a tremendous asset, where sometimes you have to build that. The commitment and the passion and the work was already here. So they're coming together to present a plan for how to build and strengthen the nonprofit sector in the region. And so moving forward, what we are committed to do is that when that plan is done, probably in the early part of 2017, our commitment is to bring back all the folks who participated in that original tour, plus more, plus others, to really now hear what is the vision. Again, from our perspective, it comes from the nonprofit sector. What is the vision, right, that they have for really building the infrastructure to serve this amazing community? And that way we can all figure out where are there opportunities for us to invest and to leverage and to collaborate. So this is just a beginning. We put the Southeast, as I said, we identified it as a region of focus, and this is a long-term commitment for us. And we're just in the beginning stages of figuring out what that is, but it's just so great to see so many people here that are also very much committed and focused. And we just have this amazing opportunity with the supervisor, with the speaker, with the senator. I mean, we have to be able to capitalize and leverage on this.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Teresa?
Your question was, what have we already started, I guess, or what can we ramp up? I think that, you know, at the county we have so many different initiatives, and Supervisor Solis has been in office almost 2 years in December. And
yeah, that's probably a super long list.
Yeah, it is. It is. You know,
I was
but
gonna say, maybe you could do like, what's the one new thing?
No, yeah, and I was as getting to that. You know, having a new member at the Board of Supervisors. I worked for Supervisor Molina in the past as well. But having a new member at the Board of Supervisors, it's good always to have you know, term limits. Some may have, you know, pros and cons, but I believe that. You know, a shakeup of government is always good, because you need new eyes and ears to see how local government is working, and to be able to create new policies that will be impactful for communities that really need it. And so Supervisor Solis has just made a big charge to do more inclusiveness of small businesses within the county. You know, if you have a small business, it's really difficult to be able to get, to be able to register right with a small business, women business, if you're an enterprise. And so we dole out money every single Tuesday for various types of contracts. It has been her charge from day one. I cover all departments under public works, so anything that's going to be construction based, I see a lot of it. I just say that because you know, small business is very impactful to the Southeast communities. I think we saw that with the information that was shared this morning. And it's important that small business also just know that there is a partner in government, that they can be able to also participate. We've created the Office of Small Business under Consumer Affairs, and have charged them with a big edict. They are very overworked now and probably going to come back to ask for more staff and blah, blah, blah. But nonetheless, we feel that that's going to be making a big impact. I only say that, and I know that there's a lot of other things that the other things that you know, that we cover, but I say that because it's important. And for those of you that do work in, you know, the small business, those are what makes, you know, the economy move in the Southeast. And I feel that it's you know, a lot of our community, Latinos, are just entrepreneurial. You know, it's just important to be able to recognize that there is a partnership, you know, with the county. And I invite you, please come up and talk to me. I can, you know, hook you up. Not necessarily hook you up, but I can at least guide you. Guide you in that.
Good point
in that
to
process.
clarify.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you very much,
That came out
Teresa. Margarita.
Well, we have been, I think I mentioned, had been investing in the Southeast LA in the corridor, primarily around environmental justice work and disproportionate impact of pollution on communities of color. We've done with that the Coalition for a Safe Environment in Wilmington, Communities for a Better Environment in Huntington Park, along with East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice and Commerce, and Unión de Vecinos as well in Maywood. They have been part of a larger collaborative that have been working for years, doing work together to help each other. And like I say, we had instituted institutes and training seminars to help people, community, because it's all driven completely by residents, completely driven. And there's, you know, muddy water in Maywood. They came together to figure that out. Well, they happened to put together some green zones in areas and pockets that'll test what you can do with community sort of impact and community input around greening and improving the air quality and improving through their own ground truthing what they know they are experiencing in their regions. Those green zones now exist in the city of Pacoima, they exist in Wilmington, they exist in Boyle Heights, and then recently in Commerce as well. That same sort of collaborative that's been working now for over 20 years is now building up a new coalition, which is called STAND, Standing Together Against Neighborhood Drilling. It's a whole issue now about oil drilling, and They're looking at the impacts of that's going on. It's in the region, it's in our backyards. We see it everywhere we drive, but they're hidden. And so environmental impact, which is really a health issue, a health impact, is something that is very, very critical, and we continue to maintain environmental justice work because it has very, very strong connections to many other multiple issues as a very, very strong part of our portfolio.
Great, thanks, Margarita. Raul, I know you talked about 5:30, but was there anything else you wanted to add in terms of
Just
takeaways
continue to
for
stay
today?
engaged. The
Okay.
speaker believes in everything being a community-driven process. It's really, he would have to get asked what does he want in the Southeast, and he says it's not what I want. It's what does the community want, right? So all we try to do as an office is provide that venue. I think that's what CCS is trying to do. I think that's what Pat Brown Institute is trying to do. So continue this dialogue, and I can speak for the speaker on this one. He has a real sense of urgency in terms of making transformative change in the Southeast. We should keep this going. We should have these as frequent as possible, and you should hold us accountable. You should ask the speaker, what is he doing for Southeast LA County? You should ask me the same thing. I love it if you ask me more, what am I doing for the LA River? But no, definitely, like, let's just keep it going, and let's not forget about this, right?
We're just all trying not to drink that much. Sorry. So with that, I want to thank our panelists, not just for participating in the panel, but I know each and every one of you have actually been here throughout the whole day. You know, you always go to conferences and you see the panelists walk right in, talk, and walk right out. So I want to thank you for spending your whole day with us, listening, and being part of the process. I think that's really important, and I think for the audience to see in your remarks and the great work that you're planning and that you've been doing, that we're not in it alone, and it's now about how do we strengthen those partnerships and that work. So thank you so much.